Good morning, and what a morning it is. It is a dull grey outside. I am looking not great. But there's a new Jinjer track out. And you know what that means. It's time for reaction video. And I'm looking forward to this a lot. Let's give it a go. Let's get to work.
Staying, you can be alone. Staying, you can feel like home. Breathing, it's a place where you belong. No one does you wrong. Your capsule is your fortress where you can leave your wounds. Your people, avoiding people, and fall in love with solitude. They won't find me in my ship. The chances go to zero. I'm a guest in my own skin. I take it off and be myself. The outside is hostile, and the waves hit me hard. So I climb into my shell to lick my wounds again.
More classically gifted here and there, that's
Silent and satisfied, misunderstood and proud. Biting our tongue in fear of saying something wrong. My circle of all friends is getting empty, it's getting empty, getting empty, emptier. And I don't really wish for you. I gotta go home, my batteries are low. This life is a lockdown. I gotta go home, my batteries are low. That's what it's all about. Whatever rest of the year, I had enough from the beginning. Turning molehills into mountains, I feel the pressure building. Should I just go on or jump over the wall and say hello to the sick world? I gotta go home, my batteries are low. This life is a lockdown. I gotta go home, my batteries are low. That's what it's all about. This life is a lockdown.
That ain't a song for our times, eh? I mean, with the very obvious surface level. Now, it makes no bones about that being a key factor, but there's a lot going on there about the culture at large. Super good. Really, really good. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, what could go wrong when you've got Tatiana in a lovely floral top and two Uzis? Um, yeah. I mean, I gotta go. I'll come back and do a proper lyrical breakdown as well. But that was really, really good. I love the kind of gentle start, the slow build. You don't often get that with Jinjer. I always feel like there's a tendency to kind of do the quiet bit and then the hard bit and the quiet bit and the hard bit. There's not generally as much of that kind of progression through a medium bit. Um, and on the, I'm hearing more of it in general on the newer, on the singles from the latest album. So I'm really looking forward to this new album. Um, Vortex and this definitely cover more of a middle ground than I'm used to hearing from Jinjer, and that's like the sound is kind of maturing in a way that I'm really, really enjoying. Um, that Yeah, that song's really good. I'm gonna do a full lyrical breakdown in a minute. Okay, one full work day later, the sun came out. I'm looking no better, and let's have a closer look at these lyrics. Stay in, stay in. You can be alone. Stay in, stay in. You can feel like home. Breathe in. It's a place where you belong, where no one does you wrong. Your capsule is your fortress, where you can lick your wounds. You are people avoiding people and fall in love with solitude. There's real ambivalence here. Like many introverts, that Tatiana is kind of known to be a bit of an introvert in many ways. As so many of the best performers are. We feel most comfortable on our own, and it is uncomfortable sometimes going outside and being around people, but there's a pressure as well to it. It makes it more difficult to then do that when actually being around people is what you need. And sometimes there's a sense of any comfort that you feel actually being kind of false. And I think in the context of this song, it feels like there's a strong sense of irony to a lot of these words, that kind of reflects that ambivalence towards being alone and cutting off the outside world, so that you can feel more comfortable and not have to deal with things that are outside your sphere. They won't find me in my shell. The chances go to zero. I'm a guest in my own skin. I'd take it off and be myself. Guest in my own skin is that's an odd line, isn't it? We talk about being comfortable in our own skin, and this is someone that doesn't feel that way. That isn't comfortable in their skin. Have to go as far as to take their skin off to even be themselves. That kind of bites. The outside is hostile, and the waves hit me hard, so I climb into my shell to lick my wounds again. Yeah. Silent and satisfied, misunderstood and proud, biting on my tongue in fear of saying something wrong. My circle of old friends is getting empty, getting empty, emptier, and I don't really wish for new ones. Yeah, there's a few ways you can take that, huh? Um, Biting on my tongue in fear of saying something wrong. There's a kind of social anxiety to that, certainly. There's also that sense in thinking about the wider world of not wanting to offend anyone, but also not wanting to, just being afraid to be misunderstood, I guess. And people judge. People judge very quickly, very easily. People are very quick to tell you what you mean instead of asking what you mean. In some ways, it doesn't seem to matter what you actually meant anymore. Someone doesn't like it, shut down. My circle of old friends is getting empty. And so, yeah, you sort of start to retreat within yourself because it's just too hard to be around other people. That's going back to more the social anxiety rather than the kind of broader sense of that biting my tongue for fear of saying something wrong. She's a strong songwriter, is our Tassie. I gotta go home. My batteries are low. This life is a lockdown. I gotta go home. My batteries are low. That's what it's all about. It's, yeah. For a lot of people, the lockdown was an opportunity to isolate, an opportunity that was desirable in some way. As hard as it was and has been for those who are still locked down around the world, it's been the opportunity to get away from some of the pressures of the world was positive for a lot of people. But also, when you have too much of that, and like anything, there needs to be balance, and it's when it's something that you've desired or needed for a long time, it's hard to find that balance. And being around people and being for this socially anxious person is its own kind of lockdown. You're locked down within yourself, and at least that's some of what I'm getting here. I think there's a healthy number of layers to this track, as any good songwriter is likely to end up with. I never asked to be here. I hated that from the beginning, turning molehills into mountains. I feel the pressure building. Molehills into mountains, again, could be taken either as an anxiety, as a disorder. Will make you feel disproportionately anxious about things, whether often it doesn't take anything at all, or sometimes it just takes a small thing. That's why it's a disorder, is that it is disproportionate to the stimulus. But it can also be taken again as that larger social point of you say one thing wrong and suddenly you're ostracized from life, from the world. Should I just go on or jump over the wall and say hello to the sick, sick world? At some point, maybe you have to exist and be part of the world. You have to accept it for what it is, or else you do just end up locked down inside yourself, and that's too easily done. It's not healthy. It feels right at the time until you realize how long you've been there and that you don't have some of what you needed. There's a lot of layers. There's a lot of mixed feelings. It's really good, emotive, poetic songwriting, which is honestly what you get with Tatiana. She's very, very good. Like most of the best metal writers, especially at the moment, writing not in their first language, frankly, better than a lot of those who are. And tonally, going with the music of the song as well, it was certainly one of their softer ones. There was, although it built to heavier parts later on, and I commented earlier about I'm really enjoying that kind of sense of progression from the soft and the gentle to that heavier sound, which I think contributes as well to that ambivalence. But even early on, I think the tone in her voice really expressed both sides of that feeling, both sides of how you can feel about staying in, being alone. Breathe in, it's a place where you belong, but I think there was a kind of tone that she was achieving there that expressed both the positive and the negative, both the actual and the ironic in those lines. Really good. She's a really expressive singer and a really expressive songwriter. The rest of the band keeping things relatively toned down. Man, I'm proud of them for this song, honestly. This is, yeah, I'm really happy with. I hope that they are happy with what they've achieved here. This is really, really great. For kind of a change of pace for Jinjer. For a band that obviously kind of trade on mixing things up quite a bit. This is a nice, a really well executed shift. And yeah, I couldn't be happier with this. I think this is going to be a strong one on my playlist. I feel this song a lot. Anyway, I'm going to go. Lights fading. Have a good one, folks. Sorry, there was a point that I was going to make and I forgot to, about that sort of dual meaning as well from earlier in the song before I kind of started to address it more later on. The isolation being something that in the kind of broader social sense, that sense of people feeling the need to be protected from things that they don't like, from opinions that they don't agree with, that sort of the very insular communities that we make that are kind of isolating as well, that are ways of protecting ourselves from what's uncomfortable, which to a certain degree is healthy and necessary, and people need to do that, need to take care of themselves and look after themselves and not have, conflict in their lives. But at the same time, the it gets very easy to thin out your own skin, to kind of progressively strip back anything that you from being uncomfortable in a real and meaningful way because something is genuinely negative, and then kind of layering back and back and back to the point where we don't want anything that we disagree with, that we feel almost as uncomfortable with something that isn't that much. Going back to obviously the kind of mountains out of molehills later in the song as well. That increased sensitivity that applies both to that socially anxious individual character and to those insular communities, people who want to feel like home and want to belong, and where no one does you wrong. Your capsule is your fortress, you can lick your wounds. You are people avoiding people. Plural people. So there, I mean, that kind of supports I think this notion of it being a broader community sense, not just that individual. I think the song works so well just on those multiple layers, those multiple levels. I think it's whichever way you take it, it stands up. Yeah. That is a song for our times on just a number of levels. And I suspect a very personal one as well. Hard to feel otherwise with that kind of quality of songwriting. You know, it's so emotive that it could hardly be anything else. And the vocal performance as well. Obviously, the rest of the band are great as always, but a song like that, especially, I think, does put that little bit more of the kind of expressiveness of the song. That's not quite true. It's definitely the musically it's very expressive as well, but yeah, a bigger part of that than usual than you would get on a heavier, maybe angrier song. A bigger ratio of vocal to band, kind of weighting, provides that expressiveness. Yeah, I'm gonna listen to that some more, I think. See you later.